Hi, my name is Riva Villa. I am the director and the instructor for the Bridge program for the Upward Bound Shelton program for the year of 2020. I'm going to be reading sections from the Conquest of New Spain for the purposes of instruction in our Bridge class this year. The section I'm going to be reading is called Dona Marina's story, which is really important to the understanding the overall context of the conquest. This book was written by Bernal Diaz, and this is an English translation. So this is Dona Marina's story. Before speaking of the great Moctezuma and of the famous city of Mexico and the Mexicans, I should like to give you an account of Dona Marina, who had been a great lady and a cacique over towns and vassals since her childhood. Her father and mother were lords and caciques of a town called Bernal, which had other towns subject to it, and lay about 24 miles from the town of Coatzacoalcos. Her father died while she was still very young, and her mother married another cacique, a young man, to whom she bore a son. The mother and father seemed to have been very fond of this son, for they agreed that he should succeed to the caciqueship when they were dead. To avoid any impediment, they gave Dona Marina to some Indians from Xicalango, and this they did by night in order to be unobserved. They then spread the report that the child had died, and as the daughter of one of their Indian slaves happened to die at this time, they gave it out that this was their daughter, the heiress. The Indians of Xicalango gave the child to the people of Tabasco, and the Tabascans gave her to Cortés. I myself knew her mother and her half-brother, who was then a man and ruled the town jointly with his mother, since the old lady's second husband had died. After they became Christians, the mother was called Marta and the son Lazaro. All this I know very well because in the year 1523, after the conquest of Mexico and the other provinces, and at the time of Cristobal de Olid's revolt in Honduras, I passed through the place with Cortés, and the majority of the inhabitants accompanied him also. As Dona Marina had proved such an excellent person and a good interpreter in all the wars of New Spain, Tlaxcala, and Mexico, as I shall relate hereafter, Cortés always took her with him. During this expedition, she married a gentleman called Juan Jaramillo at the town of Orizaba. Dona Marina was a person of great importance and was obeyed without question by all the Indians of New Spain. And while Cortés was in the town of Coatzacoalcos, he summoned all the caciques of that province in order to address them on the subject of our holy religion and the good way in which they had been treated. And Dona Marina's mother and her half-brother Lazaro were among those who came. Dona Marina had told me some time before that she belonged to this province, and that she was the mistress of vassals, and both Cortés and the interpreter Aguilar knew it well. Thus it was that mother, son, and daughter came together, and it was easy enough to see from the strong resemblance between them that Dona Marina and the old lady were related. Both she and her son were very much afraid of Dona Marina. They feared that she had sent for them to put them to death, and they wept. When Dona Marina saw her mother and half-brother in tears, she comforted them, saying that they need have no fear. She told her mother that when they had handed her over to the men from Xicalango, they had not known what they were doing. She pardoned the old woman and gave them many golden jewels and some clothes. Then she sent them back to their town, saying that God had been very gracious to her in freeing her from the worship of idols and making her a Christian, and giving her a son by her lord and master Cortés, also in marrying her to such a gentleman as her husband Juan Jaramillo. Even if they were to make her mistress of all the provinces of New Spain, she said she would refuse the honor, for she would rather serve her husband and Cortés than anything else in the world. What I have related here, I know for certain and swear to. The whole story seems very much like that of Joseph and his brethren in Egypt, when the Egyptians came into his power over the wheat. To return to my subject, Dona Marina knew the language of Coatzacoalcos, which is that of Mexico, and she knew the Tabascan language also. This language is common to Tabasco and Yucatan, and Jerónimo de Aguilar spoke it also. These two understood one another well, and Aguilar translated into Castilian for Cortés. This was the great beginning of our conquests, and thus, praise be to God, all things prospered with us. I have made a point of telling this story because without Dona Marina, we would not have understood the language of New Spain and Mexico. Thank you for listening to Dona Marina's story. I will make other videos available with readings of further chapters. I will not be reading the entire book because students have copies of this book and can read some of the chapters on their own. However, in order to make it easier for us to have conversations about the text, I'm going to be reading a few chapters on videos and making that available to students so that you can at least have an idea of what we're going to be discussing in seminar. So don't forget, you can text me or send me an email if you have any questions. And remember, we're going to be holding Cortés, we're going to be holding a trial for Cortés, accusing him of human rights violations. So please think about these things as you're listening to the book. Thank you, and I hope you view the next video.